Here we are. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that we are all here. This is your daily Catalyst Astrology report for July 23rd, 2020. We have our sun in Leo moving through the first to second degree of Leo. We have our moon in Virgo now. Came into Virgo last night. We'll be in Virgo all day today and pretty much most of the day tomorrow. And the moon, she'll move into Libra by the end of the day tomorrow. But for now, we have our moon in Virgo going to be quincunx with the Aries energy. In fact, it is coming really close to this quincunx with Chiron in Aries. There is a trine to Uranus and Taurus between these two earth energies, sextile to the ruler of Virgo, which is Mercury in Cancer. And let's see what else. We have Venus in Gemini, which is actually a very important degree today I want to talk about. And the sun in Leo. I want to talk about this. Okay, so yesterday the sun moved into Leo, all right? That was the beginning of Leo season. The sun moves into Leo. Now, something that if it has not crossed your radar by now, I am going to do it for you, which is the fact that Leo, as an acronym, is Law Enforcement Officer. Now, yesterday, what happened out in the world of the United States and its happenings, right? I wouldn't necessarily call it political, but some people I'm sure would say that. What happened yesterday was the announcement of Operation Legend, which is very simply the insertion and the positioning of federal law enforcement in key cities that are experiencing incredible increases in violence. So it's interesting that the sun, you know, the conscious ego expression of the personality moves into its home territory, and Leo is representing law enforcement officers, and this is the same day that the president makes the announcement that the federal or the executive branch, the Department of Justice, is instituting Operation Legend, which is all about federal law enforcement being put into these cities. So if you didn't notice that already, I am bringing it up so you can see the connections between astrology and the real world and what happens. Now today, the moon is, or the sun has moved into the next degree. So for the Sabian symbol of 2 degrees Leo is an epidemic. That's so interesting, isn't it? Now, it's not a literal epidemic. It represents the idea that an individual experience, right? Leo is an individual experience because we're talking about the individual self-expression with Leo and the sun. Leo is individual experience, but it's the idea that that individual experience or even crisis, right? Because an infection could be a crisis. It usually is a crisis of the body when there's an infection of a foreign agent of any kind. It spreads infectiously. That's what 2 degrees Leo is an epidemic. It is the infectious spread of an individual crisis or an individual experience, okay? Now, there's a lot of imagery around infections and epidemics right now, of course, but one thing I want to point out that happened yesterday and is also moving into today is that there was a very large, wide-scale blanket suspension on social media platforms of a certain subculture of individuals that having to do with a certain letter of the alphabet. See, I don't even want to talk about what it is because I don't want this video to be shadow banned. That's where things are at right now. But what I'm saying in regards to that is that there was a blanket suspension of accounts, thousands and thousands and thousands of accounts that had hashtags about this, that referenced it in their tweets, right? Just suspending them. And some of the really big accounts that have lots and lots and lots of followers that are just expressing themselves, right? In a way that's never been in my research has never been violent. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is that in that individual crisis, right, that these accounts are being these accounts are being suspended and banned in some way. Well, that has done the exact opposite of the point of doing that, which has now spread that experience throughout the collective. And people that have never even given that a second thought in their life or even considered it are now perking up and going, oh, well, that's interesting. If social media is banning and censoring this stuff, then I'm curious about it. And now it's still trending on Twitter, even though they have completely banned and suspended all the accounts associated with this. So you can see how these types of actions and how that is an individual crisis, in the sense that your social media account may have been completely banned as a result of the content, or even just a hashtag about something. And now that individual crisis is spreading. It is infectious, and it is making its way through the collective, in a way that I think it has backfired, certainly. But you can see how something like that has now spread everywhere. And also the same thing, the individual crisis of these particular cities where there is violence, now it is spreading through law enforcement. Law enforcement is now spreading into federal law enforcement, spreading into these cities. So again, there's that infectious spread of an individual crisis. So following the sun, you're going to see how things are expressed over time. So buckle up, because this is going to be the whole month with Leo in the sun, because the sun is at home in Leo. All right, so the moon in Virgo, quincunx, the Aries energy, right? Quincunx, it is a need for an adjustment, right? Is a wild card. It is the square peg in the round hole. Well, when we're in Virgo, this is the first half of Virgo is characterization. This is where we learn what we are actually made of and how to discipline ourselves to align with the most masterful, most disciplined version of ourselves. Virgo is the card of or relates to the hermit in the tarot. So it's the inner mastery. It is the actual focus on the inner work. It is analysis and detail oriented and meticulous, right? Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So we are using the mind to make change in a material way. Virgo is mutable earth. It's changeable earth. And we learn who we are, what we're made of, and then we work with that in order to make ourselves better for the sake of service, right? Because Virgo is the 6th house. When you come into Libra, the 7th house, everything starts to be about the individual's relationship to the community, the collective, to other. So Virgo is that last house, the bottom of the chart, where we are focusing on our own individual development. So with the moon here, this becomes a very personalized, very emotional. We're picking up feelings that maybe not ours, very subconscious. Again, in the dream state is very important right now. Quincunx to this Aries energy, especially Chiron, right this moment. But the Aries energy is the ego, consciousness in its purest form. It is the seed point of our personality and our unique character that is built upon throughout the rest of the cycle. And Aries is cardinal fire. It's action potential. It is desire and potency. Okay, so you're not thinking about mastering yourself. It doesn't consider any of these things. It's just pure ego and existence. And when we're talking about Chiron, we're talking about the wounded healer. And we're talking about Mars, we're talking about the god of war, the warrior, in his home territory of Aries, which is to push forward with confidence and conviction and domination, right? And with Chiron in Aries, it's about the wound of the self, the very basic self. And so with the moon here, kind of drawing us inward to understand what we're made of, what is our character made of, how we can work with what we're made of in order to make ourselves better. It's not fitting very well with this Aries energy day. So just keep that in mind, that this is a moment for adjustment. Now, there is a trine to Uranus and Taurus because you have 2 earth energies here. And specifically at 11 degrees Virgo, we are looking at the imagination that allows us to become individualized out of the infinite ocean, right? Because Virgo is opposite Pisces, which is the infinite ocean of consciousness. Virgo is about going into that realm, but using that in order to solidify some aspect of who we are, or the whole aspect of who we are, our character, right? And this is about imagineering in some ways, using our imagination to engineer our character. And Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury. It is the collective third eye, and it's about cultivating the garden of our mind right now. And so these things are very much linked and supportive of each other right now. And so where Uranus is, although it's disruptive and but it's also revolutionary and showing us the path of our awakening, it's very much supporting this moon at this degree that is allowing for an inner experience of engineering our character with our imagination, because it is the garden of the mind here with Uranus and Taurus. And so it is all imagination. So there's a lot of support here for that. Then we have the sextile to Mercury in Cancer. Mercury is the ruler of Virgo. So oh, there's a mutual reception. Here we go, because the moon is the ruler of Cancer. So these two are completely supporting each other, but they require some sort of participation with the sextile. So what is 12 degrees? The penetrating and unveiling power of the trained mind. That's the other thing about Virgo, is training the mind. Training is a big part of the Virgo archetype. Okay, so we're training the mind, and at the same time, the moon and Mercury are helping each other in this moment of realizing the latent power of our intuition, right? And we're talking about Cancer here. So there is something to be tapped into here, and the moon is in this position with the sextile about training the mind and unveiling the dream, right? The dream and visualization. And Mercury is really going to help with that, because this is all still very like unformed, right? We're talking about the moon, so it's in the subconscious. It's not really formed. We might not even really realize it. It's in the dream realm. And we have Mercury here that's bringing all of this latent power and intuition up to the surface in our minds, and really allowing us to really train that aspect of ourselves. These are really great aspects today. Because when we move into tomorrow, it's going to be, and I'll talk about this on the weekend report. As we move into tomorrow, again, the moon in late Virgo, this is the educational aspect of Virgo. The second half of Virgo is going to trine with we're about to get schooled big time. And it's going to be very supportive of all this Capricorn energy. We're going to have an opposition to Neptune, which is going to make it really hard to, we're going to have to find that fulcrum, right? Between like completely, utterly trusting, right? The hanged man, and then also the training process and getting really, really disciplined in a very material way with who we are and our inner mastery. And it takes work. That's the thing about Virgo. There's work here. There's an actual process of working and doing something, whereas Neptune and Pisces is just dissolve into all of it and trust this whole process. So by tomorrow, we're going to have to start finding that middle ground between training ourselves intuitively and trusting the whole process intuitively. But then it's also going to be squaring the Gemini energy as well, which is, working with the dichotomy, and just not even working with it, just accepting it and living through it. Whereas the moon in Virgo is going to really be drawing us inward to actually analyze all of this and educate ourselves. So it's going to be a little bit difficult by tomorrow. There'll be some conflict here. So I want to talk to one more thing that I think is going to really help some people today, is where the degree that Venus is at, because Venus, she's moving through Gemini, so she's working with duality, she's working with dichotomy, she's working with opposition, and it's not an easy process. I mean, there's curiosity and there is this consistent dialectic that we're working with, but because it's Venus, it's about what she values and it's about her relationships, and she wants to feel good. And so there can be certainly there's been a lot of challenges with Venus, and she's coming really close to her retrograde shadow, right? And so now we're getting into the phase where she went retrograde to begin with. So, but I want to read it because I think that this is really going to help people that have been really struggling with feeling isolated and feeling not understood. And it's the need for the mind to retain its independence from its physical environment in order to concentrate on its special problems. We have this moment now where Venus is showing us the value of retaining that independence. And it's individuals who have entered into a new realm of activity usually find themselves alienated from their social environment. Okay, this sounds familiar, doesn't it? In a sense, they live in the world but are not of the world. Well, that's a very Christ-like thing as well. They normally seek companions who can speak their language. Just keep in mind, there's like an insulation, and Venus is going to really kind of motivate us, or at least seek out and to put value on finding those who speak our language, speak your language, especially if you're isolated. I think there's going to be a lot of support for this today. And to just keep in mind that to focus on the value of that, and to realize that we can be in the world but not of it by finding companions who speak our language. That way we're not getting pulled into the dichotomy and the opposition that exists when we are within a world that we don't understand anymore. And as the two world split is becoming incredibly visible and palpable and is about to complete itself, it's really important that we connect to Venus today and let her guide us through this process and show us the relationships and how we value those relationships with people that do speak our language, and to find solace there and to find insulation from everything happening around. Because if you don't, then of course it's really easy to feel that way. So this is the Daily Catalyst for today. I hope you found it at least helpful and beneficial as much as I do giving it. Everything you need is in the description box below in terms of reaching out for a reading, getting on Facebook, and I do the daily intuitive readings live on Facebook every day. So there's a lot more information there from an intuitive perspective. It really fits in with the astrology as well. And I'm going to be doing a weekend report, and then first quarter square is coming on the 27th, and that's going to be a big deal. I think that we're going to really feel that first real crisis. If you thought the new moon was crazy in and of itself, just wait till the first quarter square, because we're going to come to our moment of crisis about what we do about that that deep intuition to make a choice. So take care of yourselves. I'll see you on the weekend report very soon. Take care, and